So we've talked about, you might have heard me say tactile cue, okay, before, object cue. So tactile cues are things that you can touch. And there's a difference between, so a touch cue and an object cue are both tactile cues. A touch cue was, and if I can come back to you again, the touch cue, okay, this, I'm here, or when I came to you, I did, I think I started here. So a touch cue. For diaper changing, touch cue might be this, okay. What was the touch cue in the bath time routine? Now it was the up. It was the hands under here, okay. This was the touch cue in that bath time routine, was putting her hands under her shoulders and saying up. But the hands under the shoulders was the touch cue. Okay, the touch cue is the most basic because it's very it's concrete and there's nothing. It's associated with the activity, but it comes, and it's the same way all the time, same place all the time, and it's a way to let the child know that something's about to happen and to help them learn to anticipate. Okay, object cues. Okay, so this would be an object cue for, if it was a baby bottle, okay, or a can of Pediasure, or a piece of the feeding tube, okay, a rolled up feeding tube. This would be an object cue for a child, okay, that something's about to happen. They're specifically for receptive communication. It's for you to tell the child something's going to happen. It's for them to receive some information. You want to do it right before the activity. It doesn't do any good to do it, wait till you're absolutely ready, letting them know that something's going to follow. It's directly onto the child's body. We were doing those touch cues, okay? And it's made the same time, every time, by every person who interacts with that child. So everybody has to have the same touch cue for the same activity. How do they help? We all like to know what's going to happen, okay? So for the children that we're talking about, it's going to reduce their startling. It's going to help them learn to anticipate, which is a cognitive skill. It allows you to give them information, helps them make sense of their day, and will let them know kind of what you expect. Okay. Sometimes you have to observe a child over time. When you're giving those cues, you'll have to keep watching to know when it's time to move it up a step, to kick it up a notch. Okay. And this one, so once a child, I just said it's a cognitive skill, once a child has an ability to anticipate, they're telling you some things. They're telling you, I understood what you said. Okay, I've got something going on up here. I'm ready to learn. I want to learn some more about this. I know something's happening. Also helps tell you how much wait time to allow. How quickly did the child move in? How long was it before she waved her arms? And the goal would be then for that to come quicker and decrease that time. It'll let you know that cognitive processing is taking place because the child remembers that I've done this before. She knew your signal, okay? And she can associate between two actions. That's a really positive and moving toward a higher level functioning skill and a cognitive skill. And they want more. Let's teach me more about this. Give me another word, okay? Or tell me, give me some more touch cues about other parts of my day. You're not going to give it, you're not going to go back tomorrow and start doing a cue for every single thing that happens for a child in a day. You're going to pick, okay, back to that question of, what's the most difficult part of your day, or what would make things easier? And it's just like, oh, every time we go to feed, he screams bloody murder, So, okay, well, let's start there. Let's figure out a way for you to let him know that it's time to get fed. Okay, so symbols, an object, a bottle is a symbol. They go from concrete to abstract. So on the left you see a toothbrush and toothpaste. That's a very concrete symbol for the phrase brush your teeth. Okay, all the way over here, reading a little sign that says brush your teeth is about as abstract as you can get. Okay, so tangible symbols are things that can be touched. and they have a clear relationship to the event. Okay, at the beginning. Later you may do something more abstract. They're permanent, and through some kind of simple motor response, the child can respond, whether that's to touch it, to move toward it, to pick it up, but it doesn't take a lot, just an eye gaze. Okay. So here's an example of some tangible symbols. And again, some of these are more concrete than others, but they're all tangible symbols. There's a picture symbol, a photograph, and objects paired with picture symbols. So the objects by themselves would be the most concrete. When you're getting ready to move on, you're going to take that thing they already know, the brush, and put the new thing with it, okay, so that they learn, and then move to where you can take away the brush and they understand the picture symbol. A photograph is more concrete than a picture symbol or a line drawing, okay? But then abstract symbols don't have really a physical relationship to the object that they represent. So examples of abstract symbols include speech and sign language, print, or braille. Okay, that's all the way over there. Again, object cues are to provide information. I'm not going to read all these, but you can look at them quickly while we go through and show you some. Okay. The last one can later be used for making choices. So once a child has learned several object cues, it's a way to let them make choices. Okay. So we start with the actual object, then we go to the partial or associated object, and then an arbitrary object. Once you've helped a child understand, about the real object, okay, they have to have it every time, and you have to give them a little time to say, oh yeah, that's my bottle, I remember, okay. You might let them keep the object during the activity or keep it close by, because that will help with the initiation and the preparation, and then it can really help with determination. Okay, we're done with this, we're going to put it someplace else. That means feeding time is over or snack time is over. And the more you do it, the more it's going to reinforce, and so that you can then move to something else. Okay. And yeah, that's the once they get that association, then you can move to not the whole bottle. You can move to something else. Might be the cap, okay? Might be the bottom part, cut off the top part. Okay. And then when a child has learned, oh well, this is a bottle, then you can use that to expand the vocabulary and introduce other kinds of bottles, okay? So they may, once they learn what this bottle is, then you can teach, oh, here's some other bottles. So they know their metal spoon, they know their spoon, then you can do a metal spoon, a wooden spoon, a plastic spoon. So actual objects would be to do a spoon or a section of their G-tube, to eat, okay? A diaper, you can read those, a washcloth, stroller. Does anybody use object cues, and what do you use? Can you give me an example? Yeah, pretty much those. Okay, the actual object. Okay. All right. So here's a partial or an associated object cue. So initially the child you'll use the whole spoon, okay? Well, and if you're thinking about things like, when these kids are carting them around and you're displaying them around the house for your schedules and stuff, they can get kind of bulky. So you want to try to make them smaller. Okay, so then once that association is established, you can use just part of the object. But still, at this point, you see it's still associated with the activity. It's still associated with feeding. You haven't gone arbitrary and abstract on them yet. Okay. So here's some more examples. So you saw the part of the spoon. So you can take a piece of the soup. This is important to think about when we talked about looking at things from the child's perspective. If you're going to do car, okay, which thing about the car is the child experiencing? They're not, exactly, the seatbelt. Don't give them the keys, because that's not going to be necessarily make any sense to them. Give them the seatbelt, okay? And So if you don't want to, if you don't have an old car seat to cut up, you feel what that leather, what that fabric is like, okay, and you go find something that feels just like it. Or if you do have an old car seat, then you cut that up. But it needs, or maybe it's a piece of metal that feels like the buckle. For bath time, sometimes people get just a piece of ceramic tile because it feels like a porcelain tub. Okay, it needs to feel like what the child feels. It needs to feel. It has to be what the child experiences. Okay, so again, if they go outside in a stroller, get something that's a part of the stroller. Bumpy fabric for therapy. I mean, it might, because maybe it's part of the therapy ball. Okay. And then you go from the whole blanket to the piece of the blanket or the piece of the diaper, and maybe you switch to a knob from that CD player instead of the whole CD, you know, something that, but they have to have the distinguishing characteristics so you'll be able to tell things from each other. So here's an arbitrary object cue, and this is for an older student. This was from a residential school, and, you know, so now this doesn't have anything to do with language arts, but how would you really do language arts anyway? So here's an arbitrary object cue, but they still learn it. This is what we just talked about. It's most significant from the child's perspective. Can't be aversive, can't be too distracting. Other people have to know what those cues are for, okay, and understand. Age appropriate and easily duplicated, because they're going to get lost and broken, okay? They're going to get lost and broken. And yeah, they have to have different characteristics. Okay, here's things to consider. Same things you consider for the other visual adaptations. You notice it says the way, you can't just give a white, you have to put the white plastic spoon on something so the child will be able to distinguish it from the rest of the environment. Okay. All right, so if you're doing this as a team, and I know we've got teams here, okay, so how are you going to make sure everybody's doing that? You're going to write a little list. Here's the cueing routine. Here's what we do. Here's what we use. Here's how we do it. And you need to include things like, hand Susie her spoon on the left side, or put it on her high chair tray. Whatever you do, you need to line out the whole routine. And yes, it's a lot of work. Yes, it's a lot of work. But remember, this is what's going to make the difference, and you're not going to keep moving further if you don't do this work at the beginning, okay? Let people know not just what you're going to do, but what you expect the child to do. When I hand her the bottle, what do I expect? Do I expect her to say "Baba"? Do I expect her to sign, whether it's her own sign or a sign approximation? Do we expect her to sign it? Do we expect her just to touch it? So if they're going to have consistency, everybody needs to know what to do. And if it's something kind of tricky, you might need to model that for some of the partners, so that you make sure that the team members know. And then you got to collect some data to know if it's working and when you're ready to move on. And if you're going to change it, let people know. It's like, oh my gosh, I just broke the last one of those and I couldn't find another single one at the dollar store or Walmart, so we're going to have to think of something else.